Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Cloud Conversations. Peter Rising here, and I am absolutely delighted to be joined by my good dear friend Rue Campbell, who we've not seen on the show for a little while. Rue, you've been on a little bit of a much-deserved break. You did sort of pop back and meet me in person at South Coast Summit back in October of last year, and we did the show then. But it's great to see you, my friend. It's great to have you back on the show. How have you been?
Yep, you too, mate. Thank you. It feels weird being back on, but I did get quite excited, about getting back into the old podcasting thing. So yeah, I just had to take some time off, and there was a few things going on in the personal life. But hoping to get back into the show and meet some interesting guests like Dwayne, who I'm going to introduce to folks just now. So Dwayne been on the show before, but being being Captain Hyperscaler that he is, he doesn't sit still, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about now that we didn't have to talk about last time. Probably the most qualified person that we've ever had on the show, and we've got him on twice. So for those of you that don't know Dwayne, Dwayne Natwick is a global principal cloud security lead at Atos Global. And like I said, he's probably the most qualified person we've ever had on the show. So rather than round off all his qualifications and what he does, I'm going to hand over to Dwayne to introduce himself. Dwayne, how you doing?
Oh, well, thanks, Rue. Thanks, Peter. Great. Yeah. Great to be on again. Yeah, it's probably been a year or so since I was on the last time. And yeah, some things have changed. I'm now the cloud security lead at globally for Atos, a global systems integrator, Microsoft, AWS, Google partner. So, I kind of got my dream job about 6-8 months ago to be able to be in help with the strategy, with the direction around our cloud security practice, and to do a lot of advocacy around cloud security and Atos. So really excited to be in this position now. I'm also recategorized as a security MVP with Microsoft. Also a security and identity community builder for AWS. So I've kind of branched out, and I'm now a multi-cloud influencer, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Because
So yeah, lots of good things, and have gone vendor independent a little bit too, because I got my CCSP from ISC Squared, and
Wow.
nice.
and I'm an authorized instructor for that for those courses now, as well as my Microsoft certified trainer aspects. So yeah.
Cool, good stuff.
Enjoying doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, like you said, I don't know how I find the time, but yeah, I don't seem to stay still.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Know the feeling well.
Because I guess you're in quite a unique position then amongst kind of like MVPs, insofar as you do have that multi-cloud balance to you, right? Like a lot of us, speak for myself, probably speaking for Peter and the rest of the guys that do cloud conversations, we are firmly in that little Microsoft bubble, and we maybe know a little bit about the other stuff, but we got our comfort zone, right? How did you kind of start looking at AWS, and what did they do right that, or what do they offer that maybe Microsoft doesn't? Maybe talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. I by the sheer, when I moved on from being at a Microsoft learning partner to going back into being part of the managed service provider CSP kind of world, a little over a year ago, I went to CloudReach, and CloudReach is primarily an AWS managed service and cloud migration provider. So I was kind of thrown into the fire of just needing to refresh my knowledge. Back when I started in cloud, one of my first cloud certifications was the AWS Cloud Practitioner, but then I quickly moved to doing Azure, and just as you both know, once you start doing those role-based exams, it's a snowball rolling downhill. so I just continued to do that, and continued that being my focus, being Microsoft. And then, I spent a couple of years as a full-time trainer with a learning partner, but then decided I want to get back into product and product management at a CSP, and fell into working with somebody that I worked with at a previous company. He had an opening on his product team, so got into that, and had to really learn up on AWS rather quickly, because that was their number one, with Azure being number two. And the approach I kind of took in learning AWS was looking at it through a Microsoft lens, and looking at what they do, what they do differently versus, from an architecture standpoint versus Azure, and kind of use that as my springboard point to kind of learn the differences, and learn the differences in terminology. And I've kind of created a study guide for everybody on my blog when I did it. That was solution architect, AWS solution architect from an Azure perspective. As an Azure solution architect, and I got to do that now with from the security piece, just to understand that. And though there's a wealth of differences between, from a security perspective, when you're thinking architecture, it's not that much different, but from a security perspective, just the maturity and the approach is very different, especially when you're thinking like identity and access management. There's a lot of differences in how it's much more policy driven in AWS, where Azure AD is much more permission based and role based a little bit. It's a much different structure around it. I think probably because of Microsoft coming from the Active Directory world, it made it a lot different, and it's a lot, makes it a little bit different for me to comprehend. You got to change your comprehension perspective as you architect those things.
Right. Yeah. No, it's AWS is something that many of us haven't really looked at before, and I guess when I think about identity and permissions management, certainly from my perspective, it seems that Microsoft, they kind of own that space, right? You have a few other players out there, companies like Ping, Okta, et cetera, but Amazon, they don't offer their own identity platform, right? Do they? Or is that a misunderstanding on my part?
Well, they have their identity and access management capabilities within the platform, but and there's still multi-factor authentication through the native aspects, but from like an identity provider perspective, it's not as rich, obviously, as like Azure AD being really an identity provider, a cloud identity provider. AWS isn't as rich as that, and working with AWS recognizes where their gaps are versus what Google has and Microsoft has also, and how they need to, and filling those gaps. And a lot of times they do that with using having those third party relationships, like you said, with Okta or even with Atos. We have our own products, as well as providing services that we utilize, and kind of layer on top of AWS services also.
Right. Cool. Good stuff. And so I guess that kind of brings me on to the next point, and something else that you've spent the last few months, probably more than a few months now, writing and then publishing, was the book, the SC-100 exam reference guide, right? Maybe,
yep.
Peter might be in a better place to talk about this than myself, because I sat this way back in the beta phase. Pro tip for everyone: if you ever get a chance to do a beta exam, you definitely do it, because I can't say for sure, but I feel like they take it easy on you when they're doing the grading. I felt like
I would love to think
maybe shouldn't have passed that, but I did.
You feel you were one of those social promotions? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I think I got lucky, I guess.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did fine on your own. But the one thing about beta exams, though, you got to be ready to wait, right?
Right. Yes.
Oh, you don't get
that instant gratification of your results.
Exactly.
That's one thing I've found about AWS exams. You got to wait like 48 hours before an AWS exam before you find out your results on an AWS exam. It's not that I didn't realize that until I took one, and they're like, yeah, you'll know in 48 to 48 hours or so. Like, oh no, I want to know now.
But your book, Dwayne, your SC-100 exam guide, Microsoft, let me see if I get this right, Microsoft certified Cybersecurity Architect Expert. They do like their long titles, don't they? I
Yeah.
really struggled with this exam. It was way out of my comfort zone, and I think it took me 3 attempts to pass it. I failed it on 2 occasions. That's only ever happened to me once before. Every other exam, I've been fortunate enough to get through the first time. And I believe it's because this exam is very, very heavily weighted on the Azure side of things, which is not my area whatsoever. So I perhaps foolishly went into it having already done the SC-300, which is the identity and access, and the 400, which is the information protection. I've yet to do the 200. That's the last one. I thought, I like the look of this title. I got sucked in by the title. I want to be able to call myself a cybersecurity architect expert and share that badge and get all that lovely warm fuzzy feeling that you get. So I went and did it, and I didn't get through, and I thought, okay, that's fine. I get where I failed. And then I took the exam again another couple of weeks afterwards, and I got exactly the same score again, which has never happened to me before. So I failed it twice. So I took stock. I thought, right, refocus, give it a while, go off. And then your book hit. You very kindly shared an advanced copy of your book, which I'm super grateful to you for, because it helped me to understand the technologies that I wasn't working with, being a Microsoft 365 guy rather than an Azure guy, because I didn't know my ARC from my WAF from my Azure policy to the thousands of Azure this and Azure that there seem to be. And I think that's all it really was, knowing which product did which things. And your book explains that so brilliantly. So if you're listening or watching and you want to take this exam and you need to understand how to apply the technologies, then Dwayne's your guy. This book is awesome. So thank you, sir. I appreciate you got me through with a very decent score, I have to say. I never like sharing scores because I always think it makes people very too competitive in one way or the other. But it got me through. But yeah, would you think it's a fair assessment that this exam is? I view it as being almost 75% Azure focused and maybe 25% M365 focused. It's very Azure heavy, isn't it?
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for the kind words, and I'm super happy that my book played a part in you passing that exam, because as a writer, teacher, trainer, that's where we get our warm and fuzzies is from from hearing others having success from what we've taught. So I really appreciate that. But it's interesting that you brought that up, because I was an SME on the development of the exam. And that was something that when we were going through the objectives and the items for the exam, was exactly that, was that there isn't a whole lot of Microsoft 365 on there. There's probably the most is probably in the in the thinking about risk and compliance areas, right? Because Purview has such a strong play across platforms, not just in 365, but also really Azure and AWS kind of start to becomes kind of a multi-cloud compliance platform to a degree, and hopefully gets even more so going forward. But it is, and I think a big reason for that is obviously it's an architecture exam, and there isn't much architecture to Microsoft 365, right? The architecture's there, it's built, the applications are there. It's just, okay, data protection, data compliance, and identity protection, and so that, which identity protection, Azure AD and Entra fall over that is an umbrella over 365 and Azure anyway. So you have to know that. So yeah, it does come across then as very Azure heavy, and I think that's just like I said, it's strictly because it's the architecture. That's what you're securing is the architecture, where Microsoft has that responsibility for the most part in 365. So that's why it kind of comes off that way. And and I can understand somebody that's in Microsoft 365 all day and not in Azure, kind of finding that struggle, and it goes back to what I was saying about, moving to doing an AWS architecture exam versus an Azure architect exam. It's a terminology and an understanding what does what, if you're not from a networking background or an infrastructure background, you've got to bridge that hole for this exam. And that's what I'm glad to hear that I was able to do that for you.
Oh, completely.
Obviously then I've
no
then I've done my job. So
you completely have, my friend. You
copy
completely
right
have.
Here.
Oh yes, show it up for all to see. That looks very shiny. I'm liking the new style that Pact have for their covers. They've changed their packaging a few times in recent years, but I'm really liking this. I'll hopefully have another one myself quite soon, but that's another story. But yeah.
Well, this is my third one, and probably I feel it was the most challenging one.
I can well believe it.
Even just because it's architecture and theory rather than doing. I did the SC-900. The fundamentals exam was even challenging to a degree when I did the SC-900 book versus the SC-300 for the identity and access, because the identity and access is so practical, and you're writing labs and exercises and screenshots around how to do this.
Yes.
The fundamentals exams, you got to keep it high level to how you describe and what this does. And then the SC-100 was that theory that, okay, this is how you apply and design and go from there. And there's not a whole lot of here's how you do things. It's here's how you evaluate things, or here's how you look at things in Microsoft Defender for Cloud or Microsoft Sentinel, or how here's how you apply zero trust to to your identities or your infrastructure, or your data and networking. It's not as much of here's what you're going to do, because you got to stay away from that too.
Yeah. I'm so pleased you said that.
It was very challenging from that standpoint.
Yeah, really pleased you said that, because when you said the word theory, I was about to say, to me, this book is exact word I was going to say is much more theoretical. And that's exactly what I needed, because I didn't understand the technologies. I didn't know what Azure Arc was or did. I didn't know in depth what Microsoft Defender for Cloud did, or all the other technologies that you explain so well from a theoretical point of view. It's exactly what I needed to understand where they fit and when they would be used. And that helps you to answer the questions, to understand these questions that you get in the exams that we're all used to. That's got to be, it just made it so much easier for me to, it's got to be that. And half the battle is always eliminating the wrong answers, isn't it? As much as knowing the right ones. But no, it's absolutely brilliant, and I think there'll be many people who will benefit from it. I mean, from my own personal standpoint, I'm an M365 guy. I wanted this cert. I just really wanted it to set myself the challenge. I'm very unlikely to ever do anything in the Azure space, so I'll probably lose all that knowledge very, very quickly. And come the renewal, I'll be swatting up and trying to. But the renewals are a much easier process and very, very fair, and I like how they're done. So.
Yeah,
Even at least annually you'll get back some Azure knowledge, right?
It'll keep me fresh. I mean, I'll be able to hold a conversation with customers if they start asking that, rather than just saying, "I'll pass you to our Azure team." I can talk a little bit more about it now, at least, which is always a good thing, right?
Right.
Definitely, yeah.
Yep.
And I totally agree with you guys, because I did my first round of renewals, or might be my second actually. I did them just the other week, like 4 or 5 to get through, like for the information protection exam and stuff like that. And they are quite useful, because I went in kind of dreading it. And I was like, oh great, just 40 minutes of my time ticking boxes. That's not going to be fun. But it is quite useful, for one, because it's open book. That alleviates some of the pressure. But 2, it does actually keep you in the loop with regards to what has changed over the past 12 months, right? Because there were questions in there about stuff that, frankly, I had no idea about, and these were changes, and things like adaptive scope and all that kind of stuff. So the way that we've moved away from that kind of traditional, what was it? Every few years you basically have to go through a fully proctored exam, right? And everyone gets stressed out doing those, especially when they're doing from home and all that kind of thing. So I think the new strategy that Microsoft have got behind this annual renewal process I think it's for the best. It's quite a good system.
It serves twofold. Like all the points that you said, Rue, are are valid. I think it also gives Microsoft people want to probably get more Microsoft certifications with the renewal process being so smooth and easy, where the other hyperscalers require you to take the full exam every 3 years. And I think Microsoft has never really done that, even like with the server, like the MCSE and those MCP exams that they used to have. They just do an update exam, right? If 2000 moved to 2003, they do a 2003 update exam. You didn't have to redo across all of the 8 exams that they required you to take to get your MCSE or whatever it was. And that kind of kept me away from doing those types of exams back then, because I was more of a solution engineer, and doing those hands-on deep Active Directory type of exams and things like that I stayed away from. But they still did it as updates rather than doing it as you having to take these exams over and over and over again on a 3-year cycle. A 1-year cycle is a little short, because it seems like I've finished my cycle of exams and I start then getting my 6-month notifications. I've realized I've got 12 role-based exams, role-based certifications. So I'm like on a rolling month every month getting these. You can't get away from them. I posted something just to get people's thoughts on it. It's like, if you're not applying it, is it worth it to put the time and stress into these assessment exams? And I'm like, because I had the Teams one coming up, and I'm like, Teams administrator. I'm like, I don't do any Teams administration. I'm like, do I need this need to have this certification? I'm like, oh, I'll give it one shot. Passed it the first time anyway, so I still have the certification. But it's like, I don't tell anybody I'm a Teams administrator. I don't tell anybody I'm a developer, even though I have the developer associate. I'm an architecture and security guy. That's my area. So
it's a good question, because I guess the more certs you get, the more renewals you got to do, right? And that's just going to eat into your time. So it's a good point about letting some lapse if they're maybe not so relevant to the day-to-day. I would hate to let one lapse, if I'm honest. Even if I was never using it.
I still feel bad. I let my data scientist one lapse the first year. I forgot completely about it, and it kind of got buried in my inbox, and then the date ended, and so I let that one go. Yeah, so that one. That's the only one I've let go, and probably won't bother to take it again because that's a very difficult exam.
I'll bet, yeah.
So, so that's kind of like that balancing act of where, do I want to let an exam that I spent a lot of time preparing for lapse, even if I'm not applying it on a daily basis. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I guess the other question that comes to mind is, do you kind of leave it to the last minute? So, you get that renewal email so early, you get it 6 months early, right? And I'm kind of like, I just keep kicking that can down the road, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And then 3 days before it expires, I kind of panic and think, oh, geez, I better hurry up and do this. Are you a bit more organized, or do you just kind of, because you got so many?
I don't know if organized or obsessive compulsive is the word for it, because I don't like it sitting in my inbox. I want to get it out of my inbox. So generally the first time I try it, I'll try it while I'm like watching television at night, and I'll just I might be watching a sport, watching a sporting event on television, and I'll take it on my phone. Because the nice thing about it is it does interface pretty well on the sometimes web traffic, web browser traffic doesn't work really well on a smartphone, but these work pretty well. These assessment exams go pretty fluently on a phone browser, and so I'll give it a try on my phone, and then if I feel that I haven't, if I didn't pass it and feel that I need to do a little bit more. Look up some of the questions as I'm going through on LearnDocs. I'll give it a try like during lunch one day. But usually, I haven't let any of them go too far. I think my developer associate, I think I was in my last like 30 days probably last year in getting that one, but most of the other ones that I'm pretty comfortable with, I think the one that popped up this week is the Azure administrator. I'll probably, like this weekend when I'm sitting sitting in my chair, I'll probably give it a shot and see if I can pass it. If not, I'll take some time during lunch and try and get it done. But yeah, I don't let it get to that window. I'm too obsessive about things to let things. I can't procrastinate. That's more for my wife. My wife's that side of the couple. We balance each other out, right? You balance each other out. She's the one that's always late and always last minute on everything. It's funny when you look at when I look at my kids, especially my daughter, who's at university now. She kind of dances. She's kind of a little bit of both. Like some things she obsesses about and has to get done now, but she'll also procrastinate on other things. So she's a mesh of both of us. She's got both of our terrible traits.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want the worst of both and the best of none, right?
Well, she's super smart and motivated too. So she gets those good traits too.
Gets that from you. Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
I think I'm somewhere between the two of you in that I don't do mine. I've got one just came the other week. I think it's my team's admin associate, whatever it is, 6 months notice. So I'll probably do it about 3 months from now, but I'm not going to do it straight away because I think that's ridiculous how soon that's come. But that's a good tip about
you're gonna nail that one. You're gonna nail that one, Peter. That one has a lot of purview based questions. I just took that one like a month ago. I was like,
cool.
I was like, it was around. There's so many questions around compliance on that.
Yeah,
is
interesting.
Which made it more pertinent to me than what I thought it would have been. In terms of external users and things like that. It was a lot of stuff around compliance and data compliance in there. So I actually liked the renewal exam for that one.
Awesome. Yeah. It feels like I didn't do that one too long. Maybe it's not that one because I feel like I just did that one. And yeah, you're right. It did have a lot of compliance stuff in, and I should very much hope that I'll pass it because I co-wrote the book for it with Nate Chamberlain. So it'd be embarrassing if I didn't pass that one. But right. Yeah, maybe I'll take your little tip though, because I'm always a little bit bored when I go on the school pickup. Maybe I can sit in the car and do it on my phone. And
there you go.
Yeah, it might be a good little way to while I'm waiting, renew an exam.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, I never thought about doing it on the phone. That sounds good because I do find that the Learn website does work quite well across different platforms. Like I use it on my iPad quite a lot, and it scales to that size. Reading the docs and everything actually works quite well on that. Never thought about doing exams on it. Oh, that's a good point. I'll tell you what. One other thing I wanted to run by you, Dwayne, was something kind of maybe let our listeners know, but then also just kind of out of my own personal interest. One of the things I noticed that you manage is called the Pact Security Pro community, right? And I think you and I maybe spoke about this a little bit earlier, but maybe you could just kind of let us know what specifically that is, because Pact obviously is this publisher, push out a tremendous amount of books. So how does the community aspect of that work?
Yeah, so they have a Discord community, and we and it started out, I think, with a newsletter that Pact was putting out to the Security Pro community. One of their writers was doing this Security Pro newsletter, and they created this Discord community. And they because I had written a couple of security books for them, they asked me if I would be interested in managing that community. So we've grown. I think when I took it over, we were around 200 users or so, and I think we're up closer to like 400 or 500 now. So we've grown quite a bit. I've built it around different things around certifications. I'll share people, call for speakers if anybody's looking to do that. I treat it very similarly to any like a LinkedIn group or something like that, where where we try and keep it community based, keep a good, inclusive environment, use it for sharing information. So that's really what its foundation is and what we're trying to do with it. Some different things also is that I need to do a little bit more of in here is doing some like more book sharing and kind of book club kind of stuff in there, to kind of keep it kind of keep it fresh and do some different things on there, which hopefully I'll do over the course of the next year or so to get more, maybe draw some more people in and make it make it more applicable to people's needs.
Cool, sounds good. Well, what we'll do is we'll share the link to that Discord server. We can put that in the description things of the show and make sure that folks can hook up to that. And just to clarify, then, that's not going to be, is that exclusive to the Microsoft stuff, or is that basically anything to do?
No,
with
I've got an area. Yeah, it's any hyperscaler. So yeah.
Cool, awesome, good stuff. Okay, yeah, no, we'll definitely share the details of that. But that sounds awesome.
I'll put the join link in our chat so you can grab that. I set a non-expiring link in there to join the Discord server. So definitely want to grow the community. Do a little bit more with it over this year. I got a lot of MVPs and community leaders that probably have been on your show.
Yeah, hopefully. Cool. Yeah, no, we're trying to, because I've had a bit of an absence from the show, I'm trying to kind of build up a pipeline of folks to have on the show. And it's just going to be all Defender guys. I'm like, I'm sorry everyone, but it's Defender. This
is good though. This is why we've got the hosts that we got, because we've now got this balance across the team, and we've got this. Everyone can take a break like you've had, and others can step in. And I should take my own advice because I just keep going for some stupid reason, but that's just my nature. I don't know when to stop, but the rest of the team seem to have mastered that.
Well, I guess on that point, Peter, you've got a new Meetup Group, right? Maybe we're talking about that a little bit.
Oh, I do. Yes, that's right. I mean, something that anyone who knows me quite well will know about me is that I'm very passionate about mental health and well-being. So I've just announced on social over the last couple of days, as we record this, a new Meetup Group, which is the Tech Community Wellbeing Check-in. It's something that I'm doing alongside fellow MVP Jessica White. Jess is a former guest of this show. You can go back and see when we interviewed her a few months ago. I think she was on with me and Kat on that episode, and Jess is wonderful. And I think both of us have got our own stories about how things that have affected us in terms of our discrimination and mental health and anxieties and all sorts of stuff. And I just wanted to create a space, a safe space, if you like, where people could come and check in and speak in confidence. So it's going to be hosted on Teams. We'll, like anything else, like this podcast, when you and I started it, Rue, Jess and I will sort of learn as we go. But the first one, we're just going to set the scene on March the 6th when we launch it, and introduce ourselves, what our vision is. Anyone wants to talk about anything, we're not going to record it, much like we don't record the security and compliance user group that you and I do with Alru, because it's very important that that's private and confidential. People should feel that if they are going to share very personal things, that they can do in confidence. So, but no, really passionate about doing something in that space to support the community. And it doesn't have to be just the tech community. I mean, anybody's welcome, but I don't think there's enough awareness of a lot of these subjects, and I'm hoping that we can get a lot of people interested in coming to share their stories and realize that they can do, and they're not alone if they're suffering with anything that's giving them trouble in their day-to-day lives, because there's a lot of stresses. The world's been a topsy-turvy place for the last few years, with pandemics here and wars there, and going from those sort of global things to economical challenges, which has led to many. I suspect all of us on here will know somebody who's been affected by the recent layoffs at Microsoft in particular, but also Amazon and Google. I've got many dear friends who've their roles have been wiped out at Microsoft, and these are people who've been at Microsoft for many years, and it's horrible to see. So yeah, I this is a very, very passionate project for me. It's one of many spinning plates that I've got, that my wife just face palms at me, because when I announced it on Twitter last night, she said, because I have to go on Twitter to find out that you're doing another user group, and surely I told you about this. I'm sure I did. It might have been about 6 months ago that I sort of floated the idea, but so yeah, I got in trouble for that. But
that's okay. When I started my podcast at my company, my daughter found out about it on LinkedIn and mentioned it, and my wife's like, "Oh, you're doing a podcast?"
Yeah. But
I can just picture the reaction at home where your wife must have said, "Oh, Peter's got another idea. Oh dear."
Oh, and I'm not done either.
I love what you do, Peter,
Yeah,
and how open you are about the mental health and the mental struggles and things like that. And we're dealing with something similar here this week. My daughter goes to university at Michigan State, and they had a shooting 2 days ago.
Oh no!
And so like Monday night, we're like making sure she's okay. She's trying to find out if friends are okay. You know, they had somebody randomly, shoot 8 people and kill 3.
Wow.
And and she barely slept that night. She was hiding under her bed for 4 hours while this person was at large on campus or in the vicinity. And she came home yesterday morning. She's like, I got to get out of here, for a few days. And she was, she was shaken, and that's just, it's all things like that that start to, build and build and build. And, we're dealing with other things from my mother-in-law's health. That's just, all that stuff just starts weighing on you. And, my wife was really, not really not in a good place last night because, all that stuff just starts getting on your shoulders and just starts weighing you down, and I've seen it even myself over the last month or so. And so, yeah. And, you being so open on social media, I usually keep my personal to myself and stick with business. But, when you're open, it does lead to others being open as well, about struggles. So, round of applause to everything that you do for the community from that aspect too, not just the technical aspect is super helpful to everybody, even if we don't say it. I know I've reached out to you about some things about, we've got similarities in our family life with our kids that, that it always helps to hear things from others and how other people handle different things, to find different approaches and find different ways to kind of keep a positive attitude. Because I generally am one that tries to keep a positive attitude, but there's some days that it's hard.
Oh, completely. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. That's lovely words to say about me. Yeah, I appreciate it so much. But I enjoy it, and half the battle sometimes is just listening, for someone out there to have someone to listen to them, and you to sit back and just hear them share how they're feeling, how it's affected them, and every story is different. It's all too tempting sometimes. One of the lessons that I have to learn myself, sometimes somebody will be telling a story and I'll immediately instinctively want to jump in and say, oh, I can relate to that, and don't do that. I'm cutting them off. Let them continue and complete their story and share their perspective. That might be helpful at some point, but it's so easy to turn it around and make it about you. It's an instinctive thing. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can get. We've already got a few members signed up for it. I'll put the meetup link in the show notes for this show as well. We start on March the 6th at 1800 hours, 6 p.m. GMT time in the UK. I think that's 5 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time in the States, and Pacific time, I think we're 8 hours ahead of Pacific time. I mean, I'm getting quite good at this recently. What's helping is my
that is correct. I'm on Eastern time, so yeah.
There you go. Because my wife started doing some art courses, and she does a lot of Zoom calls, not Teams, with her her course that she does, and a lot of hers are US based, and she keeps on asking me, what's Pacific time again? Remind me, Peter. And so it's getting ingrained in my brain. And of course, you got Asia Pacific as well, and all sorts of different time zones. So this is one of the great things about our worldwide community. It brings us all closer together, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. I'll maybe sign up for that meetup thing, because it's kind of like you guys were saying. It's like one of the things I've kind of realized over the last few years is that it's everyone's got something, right? And sometimes you're just kind of plodding along through life, and then all of a sudden some event comes and slaps you in the face, right? And I guess certainly that kind of sounds like the kind of thing that your family just went through, Dwayne. And I guess folks have to deal with to different degrees throughout their lives. So it's good that in our little community we've got folks like yourself, Peter, that are kind of putting themselves out there, because I kind of try and balance that line between talking about stuff but not going into too much detail, and that's just my personality and everything. But when we've got someone like yourself, Peter, that can start that discussion, it makes it a bit easier, right? Because I think that is one of the hard things. It's just starting talking about stuff that a lot of folks struggle with, especially when we are so kind of technically focused, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's easier for some people than others, and I've got to give a big shout out to my co-host on that, Jess. She's absolutely wonderful, and she can empathize with many of the challenges that hopefully people will come to us and share their experience with, and we can just get some common ground. And I think as we move forward, I think each month we're going to have it on the first Monday of every month. We'll maybe set a topic, and at the end of each session we'll maybe put a poll out. What do you want the focus of next month's meetup to be? Do you want it to be about stress of applying for a new job, or worry about losing your job, or imposter syndrome, or anxiety, or depression, or and there's plenty to talk about, and that's half the battle, as I say, just talking. So looking forward to it. Along with the other things like the security and compliance user group that we do with yourself and Alru, and 10 songs that I do with my dear friend Stephen Rose. And there's more to come as well. I'm potentially going to end up doing some sort of sci-fi, Star Trek related podcast at some point as well, with somebody who Azure introduced me to. Funnily enough, Azure introduced me to somebody who's very successful in that space across the pond. Really great guy called Jeff Aiken, and he and I talked the other night. He gave me some great tips on how to get what I'm trying to do. You probably noticed if you follow me, I'm really trying to increase the subscribers on this channel. I really want us to get to 1,000, because then it opens up so many options for things we can do in the toolbox, and certain things we can do to improve things, and it gets us a better reach as well. And the better reach we get, and the more likes and subscribes we get, then the more great content we're able to produce. It really does help us a lot. So as somebody successful, Azure connected with me with him, and I said, hang on, I know that guy. I follow him already on Twitter. He's the Star Trek. You've got all these great podcasts. So he gave me some. Jeff, if you happen to be listening, thank you again so much, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure, about doing something together. So God knows when I'm going to fit in my life and my day job around all this stuff. Something's got to give at some point.
I know when you do all this extracurricular activities, it's like, the day job can wait. That's not the fun stuff, right? MVP stuff's the fun stuff.
Exactly.
Cool.
Hey, though, Dwayne, the one thing I want to mention as we sort of get towards the end, because I'm mindful that we do have a hard stop tonight, is you mentioned at the start on your MVP journey recently, you moved over to the new security category, which I must admit is something that's crossed my mind as well. And I don't know if it's something you've done, Rue, or if it's on your roadmap.
Yep, I'm security now. Yep.
Oh, you are now, are you? So you can both sort of comment on this to me. What did you have to do to do that? What's involved? And did you consider going dual maybe? Or what led you to that journey?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I was on like the Microsoft 365 Defender private group as an MVP. I had joined that one, and they actually they put out essentially they posted that if you're interested in recategorizing, fill out, complete this form. Interesting, like you mentioned about being dual. I did ask to keep my Azure at the time, and those of us that are MVPs right now, we're going through the renewal process, right? So for this coming year, I actually talked to my program manager last week, because I was like, they did take my Azure away when they recategorized me in security, and we kind of went through my my activities, and I've been categorizing everything as security for like the last year. So that's why they took my Azure away, even though some of so I became too security leaning essentially. So that's why I was moved into security alone. So we're working on getting my Azure back maybe in this renewal cycle. So so fingers crossed there. I did want to be dual, but what I said was, if I can't be dual, I want to be security, because ultimately that's my role right now in Atos. So there's a lot more I think credibility saying that I'm a security MVP specifically rather than just an Azure, because we get into all the all the MDR capabilities around Microsoft, and that that's the 365 Defender 365, Defender for Cloud, Sentinel, all of that all falls into what we do. So I definitely wanted to be that security, so I jumped at that opportunity. If for those that are listening to this that are MVPs that want to be recategorized and are going through the renewal cycle, I recommend talking to your program manager, your local program manager in your region, and letting them know that. That was one thing that kind of came up when we had like a tips for renewal call with the North American program managers, was if you want to be looked at for dual, or if you want to recategorize, get in touch with them, and they can help guide you and give you some feedback on what your activity looks like and what the likelihood is. Because what they do is they go through and they talk to the specific program managers around those areas to see if that if you qualify for being an MVP in that category, essentially. So that's really what really how you would do it, especially right now. This would be the time to do it, because we're in our renewal cycle for 2023.
Yeah, I went through the exact same process as you, Dwayne, through the 365 Defender customer connection program. And I guess shout out to Katie Reichman, who is involved in that.
Yes,
she did a great job.
Definitely. She was awesome.
Dealing with all these crazy MVPs saying, when's this happening? When's this happening? When's this happening?
And then bugging her of what is this done? Is it done?
Yeah. A lot of impatient
Did
MVP.
I get recategorized? When am I going to see it in my portal?
Yep.
When can I put it on my social media?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a shout out to her. She's great. And I'll tell you what, one maybe final question for me anyway, Dwayne, just before we kind of wrap up here. And thinking back to your work in your SC-100 book, one of the interesting comments you made was the point that, you can't, there's a reduced focus on the click-by-click guide, right? Because it's about theory and it's about general high-level understanding of stuff. In my mind, if someone doing this in, day out, that's maybe easier for me. But if someone is new to this and they can't just go away and really lab it out like they maybe used to, right? They kind of have to more understand the theory. Yes, do you have any just kind of final pieces of advice for folk going into the SC-100 exam that might, other than buying your book, because that's going to be advice number one, right? So what's advice number two?
I mean, if you're not somebody that knows a lot about Azure, it's good to kind of go through and kind of look at those services, whether it's going through the Microsoft Learn modules, or the Learn docs, or just using just getting a free subscription and going in, looking at looking at a lot. There's a lot around capabilities and how you would look at Microsoft Defender for Cloud and provide recommendations for what to do within an architecture. One of the things that I did within the book was, instead of labs and exercises, was case study, like use case type of scenarios, and looking at those, taking a scenario that focuses on outcomes based on that chapter, so that you can kind of get your mind in that area of, okay, this is the way I've got to think when it comes to being a cybersecurity architect, and what you need to look at, what services are. And then back when we do in the chapter where I have like some sample questions, I also provide some potential responses to those use cases and those case studies. So, finding things like that and just kind of finding, some like real world use cases. I know, Microsoft probably, if you have access to, Microsoft will have some different things to talk, that kind of talk through how you would use certain services, in kind of some partner workshops and things, especially if you're, if you're a Microsoft partner. Looking at their partner workshops kind of does kind of a similar thing. It kind of takes you through a scenario and then how you do it from there.
Yeah. Oh, those case studies were awesome.
Nice.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Really helped me along. Really,
we really need Peter to do a commercial for my book.
Well, I have left you a very deserved.
Yes, and yes,
5-star review on Amazon.
Yes, the review is amazing. The Amazon review is amazing. and yes, thank you very much.
Nothing but the truth and nothing but love, my friend, and gratitude. Thank you so much for all that you do. It's a wonderful pleasure and a privilege to have you on the show again. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wind up? How people can connect with you, anything you've got coming up, and so on and so forth.
Well, you got my Twitter handle is there with my name in the video screen. You can find me on LinkedIn just by my name. Other than that, I'm always happy to hear and communicate. If anybody has, I'm happy to mentor, and discuss any aspects to, becoming an MVP, becoming a AWS community builder, or becoming, getting certified. What kind of what resources are available for certain certifications. Those are things that I enjoy doing and enjoy helping out. Don't reach out to me and say, hey, can you get me to be an MVP, or will you recommend me to be an MVP as your first bit of ask to me?
Yeah,
I'm sure both of you have gotten those those DMs, but you need to do your time and be a part of the community, and I can give you guidance on how to do that. So those are some things. If you, one of the other things that I didn't mention was I took over a speaker mentoring site that some other community members had done, and he had one of the leaders of that wasn't able to carry on and asked for people to step up and take over. So if you're looking to be, get involved in speaking at user groups and things like that, this group. We've got a group on LinkedIn. It's Speaking Mentors, and we're working to grow that group with more mentors, with more people needing mentors, and I'm using that also as a way to get some speakers. I'm hosting a global Azure kind of group for this coming global Azure, and trying to maybe get some new speakers mentored to speak during that event in May as well.
Oh, amazing. Well, if you share anything that you're doing, that would be grand. Thanks again, Dwayne, so much. Rue, pleasure to be with you again, my friend. Do you want to take this one home and close out the show?
Yeah, sure. I guess, again, thanks, Dwayne, for your time. Cheers, Peter. Good catching up with you. And I guess I need to do the thing that you usually do best, Peter, which is go through all the social media stuff so you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you haven't already, please subscribe to us. That helps out our Google overlords, algorithms, and all that good stuff. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Anchor, all that good stuff. And you can find us on Twitter as well. Just search for Cloud Conversations and we'll show up. So, cheers. I guess we'll sign out, folks. Peter, Dwayne, pleasure talking to you.
Yep. Thanks for joining us all,
thank you
everybody.
Both.
Thanks both. And we'll catch you down the road. See you later. Bye now.
Cheers, team.
All right. Yep. Thank you.